The city of Ottawa has declared a state of emergency. This in response to the convoy protesters who continue to occupy the downtown core. So with more on this ever-evolving situation, let's bring in our chief political correspondent, David Akin from Ottawa. And David, good morning, first of all. Let's talk about the overnight developments. What's been happening?
Right. Well, the big one was, as you mentioned, the declaration by the mayor of a state of emergency, the national capital of the country in a state of emergency. What does that mean? We still need to get a little clarity on that. For the city, it means that they can essentially bypass some normal procedures they would have for procurement. If they need to buy some things to assist police or emergency officers, that's the first effect, but it may free up some flexibility in the responses from the province and from the federal government. We'll see later on today. Overnight, we can report that Ottawa Police has made 7 arrests, most of the charges along the lines of mischief throughout the downtown core, but also in a staging area sort of just outside the downtown core in Ottawa's baseball stadium. There had been, as I say, a staging area for the protesters to assemble fuel and material, and police last night in full riot gear with weapons broke up that staging area, took away and seized the material and fuel. And that has been one of the things that residents have talked about. We have seen lots of pictures of trolleys of diesel fuel and gasoline being towed through the streets up to the trucks that are parked in front of Parliament Hill. They're constantly idling, of course, etc., and some people are living in them. So this is one way that residents thought would be, to get at the truckers, is to stop their fuel supply, and police took efforts on that. We also have about 60 police investigations underway. Police are stepping up their enforcement, and we had one disturbing report as well. A resident in the downtown, this was caught on a building security cam, an apartment building downtown. An individual who identified himself as a protester tried to light the apartment building on fire after taping the doors shut. No one was hurt. The fire was extinguished. Police are investigating. And again, just a disturbing incident, again, gets the residents here on edge.
So the demonstrators are camped out. They have no intention to leave, but on a political response level, the Liberals, of course, the NDP and members of the Bloc Québécois have been calling for authorities to really end this. And the Conservatives, at least many of them, have expressed support. Andrew Scheer, among others, taking photos with them. But there's some division with the Conservatives. What's the latest on that front?
And that just really started, you're right. When Aaron O'Toole was leader, the party seemed united behind the truckers, four square. You mentioned there was some photos taken, the whole Saskatchewan caucus, including Andrew Scheer, posed with some of the truckers. So did Candice Bergen, the Manitoba MP, who is now the interim leader. But just as the weekend sort of started to get going, we did start to see some division now within the Conservative caucus. Candice Bergen, I mentioned, the interim leader, issuing a statement in which for the first time really she acknowledged that this demonstration has to end. A Quebec area MP, a Conservative, a guy named Pierre Paulus, he's a retired colonel in our army, he called the people behind me radicals and anarchists, said it's time to clear the streets. We also saw in Eastern Ontario rookie MP Shelby Newman-Cramp. She also issued a statement saying really this has got to end. But then on the other side, a Lethbridge MP, Rachel Thomas, she stands square behind the protesters, and she had an op-ed over the weekend in which she declared her support for the convoy. This is going to be an issue today, I suspect, when we get question period going in the House of Commons, that there is now a little bit of division in the Conservative caucus facing that sort of unified front from all other parties that this demonstration must end.
All right, so you mentioned question period today and what could come out of that, but what else could we see from police, from the protesters, even political response?
I think the big thing people will be watching is an Ontario courtroom today, or an Ottawa courtroom today, where a hearing will commence at 1 p.m. Eastern. There's a lawsuit was filed Friday on behalf, a class action if it happens, on behalf of the downtown residents. That went into court on Friday. There were some arguments from the lawyers representing the protesters, lawyer representing this resident, and the judge said he was going to adjourn that to today, to 1 o'clock today. So we'll see. The residents are claiming, essentially blaming these protests for disrupting their lives for the last week. They're seeking $10 million in damages, and they want an order that the truckers should leave. Now, the judge on Friday, his really only comment was, if I'm going to issue an order, there's got to be a way to enforce that order. And so we come back to one of the policing quandaries here is the police have said one of the reasons we have a state of emergency, they've really lost control of the downtown core. There's no tow trucks. They can't physically remove them at this point. So if a judge is going to issue any sort of order later today, the judge feels there needs to be a way to enforce that order. So we'll be watching that again. 1 o'clock Eastern is when that court hearing gets underway.
Look, lots going on. We appreciate it. David Akin joining us from Ottawa. Thank you again.